So much of what I talk about is geared towards intentionally creating awareness and growth within a submissive. As a podcast host and professional dominatrix, I make requests of abstinence, self-control, leveling up, truly understanding and respecting women more. Well, this episode is going to be a little different. It's a little bit more of a peek into my head during a session. So assume the position and get ready for the voyeur's journey into a session from a proDomme's perspective. Hello, my pets, and welcome into The Dungeon, the podcast for submissives to learn, grow, be entertained, and to ultimately find empowerment in their lifestyle. I'm your host, KatNash, the Music City Dominatrix, and today I'm walking you through what a session is like, not just from my physical standpoint, but from my mental and emotional one. But before I get into that, I want to go over a couple of things for you, my dear listener. I curse. I suggest that you use every curse word from my mouth as a sort of game, a submissives game. Either get spanked by your partner with every fuck that flows from my mouth, or spank yourself. Or adversely, perhaps you are kneeling in devotion whilst listening to this episode. Every curse word earns a bow from you. I do love my listeners who message me to say that they listen to my every podcast while in a kneeling position. Another idea, and this one's for my newest little submissive admirer, feel free to Cash App me every time you hear me curse. I do have a fetish for receiving money from men. Now let's get on with it. To begin, I've decided to discuss a session with a regular. With new clients, there's just so much more emotional and mental preparation that goes into the lead up to the actual session, sometimes weeks of communication, aligning schedules, vetting them with a meet and greet coffee date, which is something that I require now of all my new clients, figuring out their kinks and limits, sometimes having to pry it out of them. You know, those silly subs who like to claim that they're into everything. Yeah, the next time somebody fucking says that, I should just let it slide and then have tons of knives and needles and bloody utensils on display when they arrive at my loft. I mean, that would be fucking hilarious. Priceless to see their face. Oh, I'm so mean. But honestly, that would be the easiest way, the most painless way for them to learn the lesson that nobody is into everything when it comes to kink. So people need to just stop fucking saying that. Anyway, as you can imagine, there is trepidation and extra work that goes into first-timers. So let's shift over to my regular. I see him about once a month. Sometimes he'll go for a few months without a session because of life or, whatever. He dated a woman for a hot minute and I didn't see him for the duration of their relationship. I respect the hell out of that. But once that ended, he was back. And might I say better than ever. In preparing for a session, I always remind myself of what kinks that particular client is into. Sometimes I'll take notes after a meet and greet or after sessions regarding a submissive's interests, their likes, their dislikes, their limits. For example, if they're into pain, or is that completely off limits? Do they crave feminization? Is it someone who truly desires that feeling of being out of control and floating in a submissive headspace? Or are there specific dreams and fantasies that they're hoping to fulfill? While I am arguably not a kink dispenser, I prefer to think of myself as an experience facilitator. Just checking things off of a bucket list for you is not really going to be hot for you or me. But working on getting someone into the headspace that they may or may not be knowingly craving, that's my fucking goal. In the case of this particular client, I saw in my notes that he is a medium to heavy bottom, which means that he enjoys pain and can take quite a bit of it. I hadn't really taken great notes, so I reached out to him to ask if he had anything in mind that he was particularly craving or fantasizing about for our session. And he replied that impact was always up there on his list. Fucking awesome. I love impact. I'm really great at impact in a session, and it's typically really fun for me. I prepare that day by rolling out all the toys that I may enjoy using. I typically overestimate my time and have far more toys out than I will actually get to. I mentally, and sometimes on paper, plot out which areas of my loft, which is actually really tiny, that we will do different things. For example, do I think I want him on the spanking bench for impact, or would I prefer him on the St. Andrew's cross? I love having a sub in front of a mirror while playing with them, so I'll move stuff around accordingly. Why do I love having them in front of a mirror? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. There are actually several reasons. Number one, it's easier for me to gauge their reactions when I can see their faces. I'm constantly checking in during our sessions, and I don't mean just verbally saying, "Are you doing okay?" which I will do that sometimes, but I'm checking in energetically, seeing the way that their body is moving in response to what I'm doing. Their breath, their heartbeat, if they're sweating, the faces, if they're grimacing or smiling. You know, there are so many ways to gauge what they're going through. Typically, it doesn't necessarily have to be a verbal check-in. Though I have had submissives that are completely stoic the whole time. They are really, really hard to read, and I found that with them, I definitely have to check in verbally a lot more often because I just can't get a good read on them, you know? I want to ensure that I'm staying within their safety and comfort zones. I mean, naturally, they're not going to be fucking comfortable, but I don't want somebody leaving my place with PTSD from me, you know? Being able to easily see their faces, the front and back of their body during impact is a safety measure for me. The other major reason is that I find it really fucking hot. I love seeing their reactions. Yes, I love hearing their reactions. The gasps, the exhales, holding of breath, the moans, the whimpers. I love all that. The sheen of sweat that swiftly forms on their bodies. But I like seeing them tied up. It turns me on when someone is vulnerable for me. It really, really turns me on when they're vulnerable and they're also turned on by it. So I want to see that. Also, I like the idea of them being able to see me prowling around behind them, ready to strike, ready to play, like a cat playing with their poor captured mouse. You see me, but there's really nothing you can do about what I'm about to do to you. Oh, that's hot. Okay, I got a little off topic there. Back to preparing for a session. I choose what we will be doing and what I'm going to wear. This is a big part of it. I try not to wear the same thing twice when sessioning with regulars, but my memory is not that great, and I'm sure I do. If I want a role play type vibe, you know, I've got a doctor's coat. For goddess worship, I have gowns and gold to don. Most of the time, I wear black, tight, and strappy. My favorite color is black. My normal vanilla wardrobe is 98% black, maybe 99% black. I wear black. That's just my color. I typically get some butterflies before a session. Only with my most consistent regulars, in which I truly consider them to be my personal subs and playthings. They're the only ones that I generally don't get butterflies with. With them, it's just excitement. I get excitement and butterflies most of the time. the slight bit of anxiety that comes with having to just remember everything that I'm planning on doing. And, a little bit of nerves, like, is this going to be a great session? Also, a big one for me is the question of, are we going to connect? And it's only happened a few times, but I have had sessions where I really did feel like a fucking kink dispenser. It felt like I was just going through all of these activities, trying to get the sub to a certain feeling, but never actually connecting with them and achieving that. These have been my only bad sessions, and I'm putting bad in quotation marks there. To be clear, I'm very lucky that I've never had a truly bad session where something bad actually happens. But the ones that just kind of suck were the ones where the sub had a kink or a fetish in mind that was their whole entire goal. It was just to experience that for real. And I've found that when you're focused on a fantasy that you have replayed a zillion times in your mind is stronger than your ability to be present and connect with the person you're with, I guarantee it will not be a mind-blowing session. The absolute key to a great scene or a great session is always connection. Also, when there is a connection, it makes it so much hotter for me. I've done things in sessions that were so far from anything I had ever fantasized about. The example I always come back to was my little human couch, human furniture fetish. That idea did not turn me on at all. Like, you just want me to sit on you and pretend like you're not there? Like, what? I went into that one with an open mind, And honestly, I told him I have no idea what I'm doing. But I was honest and I experimented with him. And though he had lots of human furniture sessions before with other dominatrixes, from this place of honesty and transparency, we connected. And let me tell you, it ended up being so fucking hot. The amount of times that I masturbated after that session just thinking about it and what I would do the next time, it was insane to me. And that was something that it didn't seem like it would be awesome. And honestly, if we hadn't connected, it probably wouldn't have been. I have a very specific playlist that I play during my sessions. And at this point, it's kind of like a Pavlovian response in me. Fucking warrior up, bitch up. You're about to torture a submissive. It gets me in the mood. It's my hope that when a client hears one of my playlist songs in the future, they get little flashbacks as well. The same goes for my signature scent that I always wear. It is actually a scent that you may smell out and about in a vanilla occasion. And I've had a sub tell me that a coworker came in smelling like it once, and he was thrown completely on his ass by the effects it had on him. He couldn't even fucking think. He was like, his mind just short-circuited because this burly dude came in smelling like this particular scent that I wear. So I fucking love that, Now, I am not a huge preparer of scenes. So what I typically do is I just create an outline of how I want the session to feel and an outline of the things that I would like to do in the session. I know some people chart out every little bit of a scene, and I'd be interested in doing a co-topping scene with someone like that sometime just to see what that experience is like. But that's not my nature to plan things so in such minute detail. I do vague outlines of how I want to play. And this allows me a lot of freedom to vibe the sub out and move along according to what I feel from them. It's a lot of back and forth energy that I'm receiving and putting out. So I really work very intuitively, and there's minimal planning of the actual scene. When the client arrives, I like to dive right into the session and our dynamic. And I don't care for a lot of chit chat, like as equals. I want them fucking trembling. And if we're chatting about the weather or where they're going on vacation next, it's just going to take so much more work to get them and myself into the right headspace. So straight fucking to it. I love when they are just open to however I want to play. The submissive that I had in mind when I started this episode, before I got off on a million tangents, he has a great sense of humor. Our sessions include laughing from both of us, typically at his expense. He's jovial, but my God, that guy can take some pain. He's vocal and curses, but he's always respectful and aims to please me. And the eye contact is always a turn on to me. One of my biggest turn-ons in a session is when a sub is taking some form of pain from me, whether it's impact on their bottom or intense nipple clamps, whatever it may be, and they've crossed the pain threshold but are trying to stretch their pain limit in order to please me. The pain threshold is where something begins to be wildly uncomfortable, uncomfortably painful. That's the threshold. And their limit is when they just cannot take it anymore mentally. I love, love, love looking a sub in the eye as they stretch that limit. It makes me proud. It's so hot to me to see them overcome the panic that begins to set in when someone experiences intense pain or overwhelming sensation. They're oftentimes able to still and calm the shaking, trembling natural defenses against pain. And then my goal is to have them sink into a deep breathing calm despite me still creating those intense sensations of pain. It's amazing. It's inspiring. And it's a good lesson for the submissive. They're capable of overcoming so much more than they think they can. They're stronger than they thought they were. And they are ultimately in control of themselves and of their mind. So fucking hot. My playlist is a little longer than an hour, which is the length of a typical paid session. When I first started out, I would stop the session at 60 minutes in or 50 minutes in and give them the choice to do another hour or to move on to a little aftercare. They, of course, always chose another hour. And yay for me, they'll double the income. But after just a few sessions set up like this, I realized that I was unintentionally taking advantage of my clients in their altered submissive headspace. Of course, they're going to want another hour in that moment, but they're not always making a healthy financial decision for themselves. So I always stick with the booked amount of time, the reserved amount of time. Even if they want to go over, that's not going to happen since we've already talked about it. Also, I'm much busier now than I was back then, so I naturally have less flexibility in my schedule and add-ons. I do always get in aftercare though. I have many clients that will book an hour session followed by an hour of cuddle session after. I love this. During the cuddle session, along with just marinating in those amazing feelings that you get after a fantastic session, I get the opportunity to chat with and connect further with my submissive, whether it's chatting about what's going on in their life or fascinating conversations about random things. I have some really awesome conversations with some of my clients, but it's always enjoyable. And, a lot of it is just chilling, no talking, just snuggling, me petting their head. It may sound weird to some, but I oftentimes feel like a proud mother to my sub during a post-scene cuddle session, especially if there was pain involved in the session. I'm proud of what they just went through for me, and I love nurturing them after that. When the aftercare is done, we say goodbye and it's time for me to clean up. This includes sterilizing and cleaning. I change into some comfy clothes. I go from hot dominatrix to slovenly house maiden pretty fucking quick. If I remember, I'll take notes about what we did in the session or inspiration for next time. With some sessions, I'm exhausted afterwards, but more often than not, I'm energized, especially if we connected. I have this feeling of success, like, fuck yeah, that was so amazing. I'm good at this. And I think about what the submissive might be feeling or thinking. I typically reach out to check on them in the next couple of days after a session. So, what makes a session awesome for me? Number one, if the submissive is a good communicator, good. That's going to make it more awesome for me. As a dominatrix, I have to be able to trust the sub to communicate their likes, dislikes, and limits with me. While I enjoy causing pain to people, I'm ultimately here to help empower, actualize, and heal. I don't want to cause trauma. I can sink more fully into my dominant self if I know that the person I'm playing with can communicate well. I hope that makes sense to you. And that leads me to the opposite end of the spectrum, the sub who tops from the bottom. I do not like this. Now, because I am a huge advocate of communication, I will oftentimes ask for input from a submissive, but this is entirely different than a sub topping from the bottom. I actually had a new client recently who tried topping from the bottom in a very manipulative way. He apparently really wanted to get off an orgasm in our session, which is absolutely forbidden. There's nothing actually sexual that happens in my sessions. This particular sub has had other regular professional dominatrixes over the years. And by regular, I mean like ones that they've revisited time and time again. So towards the end of the session, when he began begging for my permission to let him orgasm, he actually shifted it to saying that so-and-so dominatrix would let him get off and then instruct him to clean it up. She says that I could do this, and she's going to instruct him to clean it up with his tongue. Essentially, he was throwing me ideas that other dominatrixes had done with the hopes of, I guess, pressuring me into doing the same for him. Absolutely fucking not. And I clarified to him that I didn't appreciate his manipulation tactics, and if it were up to me, he would never again in his fucking life orgasm. Ever. I love sessions where the sub trusts me to create the scene, where they trust me but are also terrified. I love a sub trembling. If it's a female, I love when I can smell as she gets turned on. There's a scent, and it emanates from her, and it's so hot. The best sessions are ones in which I know your interests and limits, and I'm free to craft a session within that container that is hot for me. The worst sessions are with those who are so deep into their detailed personal fantasy that they want me to play a very specific role. I've actually had potential clients contact me with actual scripts. And I'm talking like a 2-hour long, then you do this, and then you do this. And at this point, you can take a bathroom break or you can go get a drink. Seriously. And while they were interesting ideas and interesting fantasies, and these clients would pay well, extra, I ultimately turn them down because I'm not setting myself up for failure. And I know that the reality could never come close to a fantasy like that. And the main reason why it won't be fulfilling is the same reason why some sessions are so mind-blowingly amazing. And that is the connection. When you have a very specific, drawn-out fantasy in mind, these very specific scripted roles leave no room for real connection. And that is what ultimately makes a session hot as fuck for both parties involved. Connection. I hope you learned something today, or at least were entertained for a bit. I appreciate you joining me, and I hope that you come back and join me for my next episode. You can find session info and all my offerings on my website, www.KatNash.com. Stay tuned for a digital workshop for femdoms, and also my soon-to-be-announced experience for the fall. It's for submissives. It's digital. I've literally been marinating on this one for over a year, but I'm almost ready for it. And feel free to email me directly, thewildcreatrix@gmail.com. I'll talk to you next time. And until then, stay kinky, my pets.